those keys.
Welcome. This is the Felt Recoil Podcast. My name is Kris, and across from me is the always present, ever loving.
That was generous.
Yeah.
Patrick.
I'm a nice guy. Welcome to episode
I thought you were going to keep going, though. That was why the pause was there.
I ran out of things to say. I only have two nice things to say about you, and I had said them both.
Used them up, huh?
Sorry about that. This is episode number 31. Tonight's going to be a good night. I imagine myself getting really worked up about a few things.
Wait.
We're changing it up a bit. Okay, first of all, thanks for joining us. Thanks for telling people. I spent a little time with our old friend Jonathan Brayton tonight. Do you remember him? He's a cool dude. Cooler than you, cooler than me. He was a guest on this here podcast. And if you haven't heard his episode, you should go to feltrecoilshow.com, click over to the podcast link, go back and find it. You can also probably find it on our Facebook page as well. But he's a cool cat. I got to spend some time with him tonight. And small world, he brought a friend with him named Brian. And Brian lives down near my old stomping grounds of Warner Robins, Georgia. Jonathan Brayton, by the way, was on episode number 9. Should have looked that up first, so I didn't sound distracted. Anyway, so Brian said he'd got the podcast a couple times and had enjoyed what he heard. So I don't know what he's listening to, but it is appreciated. So Brian, nice to meet you, man. All right, a lot to get to on the episode. We're going to talk about whether or not marriage is a human right. I find that to be a funny thing. The left wants war. We talked last week extensively about the shooting. We tried to say don't blame it on a party, blame it on a lunatic, because we just think that's the fair way to treat it. But it looks like that's not what the left wants. Seattle installed a tax on all firearm sales. And guess what? Listen, you ready? You ready? People stopped buying guns in the city of Seattle. They now drive away from the city to save money. Isn't that interesting? Huh, common sense. And the Huffington Post has blamed the death of an American on the fact that he was white. If you've seen Otto, do you know how to pronounce Otto's last name? I feel terrible. As you may or may not know, I don't really watch the news because I don't believe anything I see on the TV. So I'm very seldom on par with the correct pronunciations. But
I don't know how to pronounce his first name, so I'm probably not going to be a whole lot of help.
I really think it's Warmbier. I mean, it looks like it would be Warmbier. But anyway.
Which no one likes.
Right.
Except Europeans.
The Germans. But Otto passed away at 21 years old. He was visiting North Korea, and the Huffington Post basically says he got what he deserved for being a white man. That's a true story, and I'll read you the article. But first, let's talk about our charity of choice. This week, you might feel like we choose this one almost every time, but it's near and dear. I have 3 kids, and my wife and I work hard to support Operation Underground Railroad every single day. We give to them monthly. I want you to know that, not to brag, but just so you know, I am committed to these people. I love what they do. And if you don't know what they do, Operation Underground Railroad goes and finds children who have been sold into sex slavery around the world. This is a big deal, especially in Southeast Asia, where Americans go for sex tourism, and they think these girls are consenting, but they're not. They're actually slaves. This is a big deal right here at home, where Tim Ballard started Operation Underground Railroad after witnessing a man trying to sneak a small child across the Mexican border. But before you assume the man was sneaking the child into Mexico, no. The man was bringing the child from Mexico to the United States, so some jackass pervert here could have his way with him. Think about that. There are monsters in our own home. So Tim Ballard and the crew at Operation Underground Railroad are trying to clean it up, and they need your help. It costs about $60,000 per mission these guys go out on, and they rescue several children every time. So they need the support, any support you can give. It doesn't have to be $100 a month. It doesn't have to be $50 a month. You can give them $5 a month. And if we could all do that, they'd go out there and be able to stop the problem, because they'd get millions of dollars every month. So please visit OURrescue.org. That's OURrescue.org. We also have them linked on our website and all of our social media, but most importantly, just hit up OURrescue.org. HMMmmmm.org. And please help out with Operation Underground Railroad. Okay, I do have to tell you one thing. Speaking of kids, just to put us in a happier mood, anytime you talk about stuff like that, it's just so easy to feel dark and almost, I don't want to say depressed because it's overused, but it definitely makes me feel like murdering people. I asked Tim Ballard.
Comforting.
I got to meet Tim Ballard one time. I consider that an honor and a privilege. I was asked to help make a promotional video for a center that opened up in Charlotte. We're going to try and get those guys on the podcast, and they've agreed to come on. But the point is, I asked Tim Ballard, I said, how do you go in there and not just kill these guys? Like, honest to God, what is it? You're the dude. I mean, you operated legitimately. You're the
Former
guy.
CIA, right?
Yes. Yep. You know your stuff. You could kill me with your pinky finger. Like, what stops you? Like, don't you just want to rip these guys apart as soon as you're in the same room? And he was so cool. He's just like, yeah, of course you do. But I mean, it doesn't get you anywhere. You got to do it right. And that's how you can continue to get more guys. Makes sense. If you killed one guy, then they're looking for you because you killed somebody. So since I'll be the guy murdering people, Tim can go out and catch the other ones. All right, I'm just kidding.
I feel like this isn't going to last very long.
It just makes me mad. It really puts me in a rage to think about what these people do to kids. These are children, and people do it. So speaking of kids, here's a lesson about how spoiled my kids are. Patrick, this does involve you. You need to hear this. My oldest son said to me last night as I was saying goodnight, and I go in, and our boys are now sharing a room. It's a bit of a struggle because now they both get up at 7 a.m. There's no one or the other got up and maybe they'll go back to sleep. No, they're now both awake at 7 o'clock every morning. So I went in the night before last to tell bedtime stories and read books. And my oldest son says to me, "Hey, Dad, can you tell Mr. Patrick to get me a watch for my birthday?" And I said, I mean, I can. Why does he have to buy you a watch? Why can't I just buy you a watch? We'll put it on you. Here's the thing we do. When you have kids, you'll understand. If you already have kids, you know this. Kids ask for everything all the time. Everything all the time. Can I have that? Can I have that? So I don't know which one of us came up with it, but my wife and I, right at the beginning, started with, yeah, we'll put it on your Christmas list. You want that on your Christmas list, or you want it on your birthday list? Oh, put it on my birthday list. Okay, yeah, we'll make it one of the things. We'll think about getting it. And that really does ebb the flow of begging more than you can imagine. So that's something we do. So I said to him, well,
seems smart.
Yeah. Why don't we just put it on your birthday list and maybe I can get it for you for your birthday? Yeah, Dad, put it on my birthday list, but Mr. Patrick can get it. And this coordinates with the fact that this week Beck asked if you were his friend. So my oldest son wanted to know if Mr. Patrick was his friend too. And when I said yes, I think he got the impression that, well, since we're friends, he owes me something. Well, tell that man to buy me a watch. So
I have to hunt down a Mickey Mouse.
I thought it was so good. He wouldn't want it, man. He wouldn't want it. It's going to have to look like the H.Gooses we wear. I think you're going to owe him an H.Goose watch. Just FYI.
All right.
But anyway,
I called him a Buddy Harris.
Don't get him an H.Goose watch because they're too nice to get buried in my backyard on day 2, and that would drive me crazy. And I know he would. He has a hammer. He has many tools. And the rules with the tools at the beginning were okay, but they don't go outside. And now my backyard is just littered.
We could probably talk to Harris and maybe do like a marketing campaign where we can see if it'll survive the life of a 5-year-old.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. We should
just document that for Instagram.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's got legs.
I actually think that's a really good idea. Yeah, we'll try that out. We'll see if H.Goose wants to get on board with that. All right. Okay. From the HuffingtonPost.com. This is written by a black woman. That's important. And her name is LaSha. I'm not kidding. Her name is literally first name L-A, La, last name Shah, S-H-A. That's probably not a real name because this kind of filth, people don't put their real name on. But bear with me. Let your blood boil, and then I'll take care of the yelling for you. Okay. On the revocation of white privilege in North Korea. That's what the hell he gets. Good for him. My mother had uttered those words in her typical matter-of-fact tone one morning as she watched the news. He was Michael Fay, an 18-year-old from Ohio who had confessed to vandalizing cars in Singapore and was subsequently sentenced to 6 lashes from a rattan cane. I was in 6th grade, and all I could imagine was how horrible the pain would be. My mother was unmoved at the thought, remarking, quote, "He earned that." I thought about my mother's words a few days ago while watching video of 21-year-old Otto Warmbier, another man from Ohio, who last week was convicted of subversion for stealing a propaganda banner in North Korea and sentenced to 15 years hard labor. Just as in Faye's case, I was shocked by the severity of the punishment. I've tried to imagine spending a decade and a half performing what the North Korean state deems hard labor, and I can't. But I'm not 11 anymore, and now my mother's callous reaction to Michael Fay's sentence is my reaction to another young white man who went to an Asian country and violated their laws and learned that the shield his white male identity provides here in America is not Teflon abroad. As shocked as I am by the sentence handed down to Warmbier, I am even more shocked that a grown man, an American citizen, would not only voluntarily enter North Korea, but also commit what's been described as a college-style prank. That kind of reckless gall is an unfortunate side effect of being socialized first as a white boy and then as a white man in this country. Every economic, academic, legal, and social system in this country has for more than 3 centuries functioned with the implicit purpose of ensuring that white men are the primary benefactors of all privilege. The kind of arrogance bred by that kind of conditioning is pathogenic, causing its host to develop a subconscious yet no less obnoxious perception that the rules do not apply to him, or at least that their application is negotiable. Blah, blah, blah. She goes on and on and on, saying, I'm willing to bet my last dollar that he was aware of the political climate in that country, but privilege is a hell of a drug. Coming from a country filled with citizens who lambast black victims of state-sanctioned violence by telling us that if we obey the law, we wouldn't have to face the consequences, Warmbier should have listened. If he had obeyed North Korea's laws, he would be home now. In fact, if he had heeded the U.S. Department of State's strong advisement against travel to North Korea, he would be home right now. And if Eric Garner is to be blamed for his own death for selling loose cigarettes, or if Sandra Bland is dead because she failed to signal when changing lanes, she hung herself, by the way, don't know if you know that, then Otto Warmbier is now facing a decade and a half of hard labor because he lacked both good judgment and respect for the national autonomy of a country which has made its hatred for and vendetta against America unequivocally clear. All right, so that's the crux of it. There's more. You can see a link to it at facebook.com/feltrecoilshow. You know who really I'm reminded of in this article is Michael Brown. You remember the black community got together in Ferguson and literally burned the place down because Michael Brown thought he could strong arm an Indian convenience store owner and then try and kill a white cop and get away with it scot-free. And when his friend made up the story that Brown's hands were up in the air as if he was surrendering when he was shot and killed after trying to kill Officer Wilson in Ferguson, Missouri, everybody was outraged because suddenly we're supposed to care more for this victim of violence because of the color of his skin.
Is this the part in the show where you're going to get real worked up?
Maybe a little bit.
Or are we not there yet?
Maybe we'll get there.
Okay. I just wanted to check.
Let's start over. Let's reread this. That's what the hell he gets, good for him. My mother had uttered those words in her typical matter-of-fact tone one morning as she watched the news. He was Trayvon Martin, a kid in Florida who was known to be carrying drug paraphernalia when he attacked a Hispanic neighborhood watch officer who then shot and killed him. I was young, and all I could imagine was how horrible the pain must have been. My mother was unmoved at the thought, remarking, he earned that. So I thought about my mother's words a few days ago while watching video of Michael Brown, a man from Ferguson, Missouri, who was known to have just robbed a gas station and then tried to kill a police officer and got shot and killed. Just as in Faye's case, I was shocked by the severity of the events. I've tried to imagine being shot by a cop after trying to kill him, but I'm not a kid. So my mother's callous reaction to Trayvon Martin is now my reaction to Michael Brown, a black kid who tried to kill a police officer or harm someone innocent of any crime, and while violating the law was shot and died. Is there a difference in the path of logic here? Is there any difference in saying if a 21-year-old white guy from Ohio gets what he deserves because he goes to North Korea and breaks the law, then isn't Eric Garner, as she mentioned in her article, didn't he get what he deserved? Didn't Michael Brown get what he deserved? Sandra Bland hung herself in her prison cell. She wanted to die a martyr because the community that glorifies hip hop music and violence in general, and not just black people, by the way. Let me be real clear. I lump the pop culture community into one. So if you hear me say hip hop, I mean pop culture, the MTV VMA Awards generation, the people who think that the most important thing you should care about is who has cheated on whom and when they did it and when did we find out.
Very important stuff, sir.
It's incredibly important stuff if your head is so far up your own ass that you just don't care what else is happening around you. There are people in this world who wake up every day and hope that reality TV plays out the way they want it to that night. There are people in this world who wake up every day and watch television shows that only exist because some people enjoy gossip about other people that much, meaning TMZ. There's an entire industry that is subsisting off the fact that Americans are growing dumb. And they peddle pop culture to you, music, television, and movies that portrays black men as either very, very successful in a way that is great and should be admired, or they elevate members of the black community like Jay-Z and Snoop Dogg and Ludacris, who sing about and glorify the beating of women, the selling of drugs, and the murder of innocent people. And most importantly, who sing about and glorify defying the law. So when you embrace these people like Jay-Z, who has a very popular song called 99 Problems, that's all about, by the way, getting stopped while trafficking cocaine, all right? And it says, I have 99 problems, but a bitch ain't one, all right? Derogatory against women. Any white guy that talked that way on a network television program would be shunned, would be fired, would never work again. But for some reason, Jay-Z is allowed to do that. He's also allowed to use the N-word. That's fine because people like Jay-Z and people in that community think calling each other such a vulgar racial expletive is okay because we've hijacked it and it means we're friends. No, it doesn't. It makes you look like a moron. Don't use that word ever with anybody.
It's okay if Bill Maher does, though, right?
It's okay if Bill Maher does it, and it was okay for Dave Chappelle. And Dave Chappelle made us all laugh while using it and then wanted to be outraged when white people repeated his bits to other white people. It's a hypocrisy unlike anything else in our culture. And it's hypocritical to say a white Ohio kid gets what he deserves when he breaks the law and then to not go, and the same thing's true for Michael Brown. He tried to kill a cop. The same thing is true for Eric Garner, who resisted arrest, was fighting with police who were trying to handcuff him for committing a crime, by the way, and then had a heart attack in the ambulance and died because he was morbidly obese in the first place. It's hypocritical to be outraged over things like Freddie Gray, who half of the police officers involved were black, who, as we well know now, basically killed himself in the back of the paddy wagon. You can't get outraged about that and then say, but when white people get their privilege revoked, they should just expect it. She's essentially glad that this happened. The article reads as if she's incredibly happy that Otto died. Because
she sounds pretty thrilled.
Yeah, because now a white man finally got what he deserved. What I would like to see happen is for the black community or pop culture or whomever you want to say. I want to see LaShaw here in the Huffington Post say, hey, young black kids, if you commit crimes, you are most likely going to die early. And no one will mourn you when you die. We won't take to the streets anymore. Here's our new rule. White, black, Hispanic, whatever you are. If you die while committing a crime, we will not mourn your loss. Let's make that the governing rule for society and see how quick this, you want to talk about entitled. Look at the attitude of kids like Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin. Look at the parents and the way they talk on television. That's the most entitled group of people you'll ever see. They believe they deserve something special simply because of the color of their skin.
You remember that there's been two instances since I've lived in Greenville. I don't know if you remember these or not. One was a guy tried to rob a Waffle House and was shot and killed by a patron, and the family tried to sue everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, any and everyone they could, and they were just outraged that someone had the audacity to shoot and kill their son as he was
robbing the Waffle House.
With a firearm.
With a gun, yeah.
He had a gun. This wasn't like, he was doing the whole, I got my finger in my jacket pocket deal. He was holding people hostage and demanding their money. And a guy came around the corner and popped him. And the family went ballistic. They went nuts because they demanded that this be, first of all, it's an outrage that someone would kill their son. Never any acknowledgement that there was a crime taking place. And then I think there was another one that was in a Pizza Hut or something like that. It was another restaurant. Very similar situation. And I distinctly remember the parents being on TV saying how ridiculous it was that someone would have shot him because he wasn't going to hurt anybody. As he's holding a gun to people, pointing it right at their face. They have it on video.
Yeah.
He had a gun a foot away from a guy's face, demanding all the money in the register, and then wouldn't let him move. He's like, give me all the money, and then as soon as the guy goes to give it to him, he's like, but don't move.
Yeah.
And then somebody else ends up basically shooting him in the back, killing him instantly, more or less. And then the family's outraged that someone would dare, shoot him. It's just
He didn't have to shoot my son. That's what they always say. He didn't have to shoot my son.
Yeah, they were never going to hurt anybody.
My boys and my girl will grow up knowing that dad will never say he didn't have to shoot my son if tape exists of my son trying to shoot someone in the face over some money. It just won't happen. And as much as I love my kids, and you think about things like that as a parent, you think, okay, because that's really the hard part. How do I make sure my kids don't become Michael Brown? How do I make sure my kids don't become Trayvon Martin? How do I make sure that my kids understand that the strength is in walking away from the confrontation, and that it's really, really stupid to go out looking for a fight, that it's really, really stupid to get on the wrong side of the law? And this might be part of the difference. When a police officer comes around me and my family, I'm the weird guy that wants the cop to talk to the kids to show him that his duty belt and his car and everything like that, because I don't want any mythology surrounding a police officer in any negative way where the kids go, oh, police make me nervous. I want them to go, I've met a ton of cops and they're always nice guys. I want that to be the way the kids grow up, and then they know that's right and then other people are wrong, okay? Instead, you're raising a generation of kids, black and white alike, by the way, who believe that the rules just don't apply. They can do whatever they want. Look at these kids that vape now, and they come into retail establishments and feel like they can just blow their whatever that crap is right in your face, and, well, you can't be mad, I'm vaping. It's like, hey,
it's not a cigarette.
Why don't you show a little common courtesy?
Nope, you're still a douche.
Yeah, well, why don't you just for a second, let's just act like someone else is in the room, and you cannot blow that vapor in my face. And I guess it's kind of probably played out when we say this is the most entitled generation out there. But these are kids who are literally telling us we shouldn't be fighting a war because anarchy is the better idea and socialism should work and everybody should give me everything I need because it's actually deserved. I saw a car the other day with a sticker that said marriage is a human right, not a heterosexual privilege. And it was right next to a Bernie 2016 bumper sticker.
Makes sense.
And I thought, well, if marriage is a right and I'm an ugly dude like I am, then that means legitimately, if marriage is a right, I have the right to sue hot looking ladies for civil rights violations for not being willing to marry me.
Bro, everything's a right now.
Everything.
Everything.
It's unreal.
If it's something you don't have, you have a right to it.
I got a right to that. I got a right to a living wage. No, you don't. You got a right to go out and get a job.
But that is the Bernie crowd, right?
Absolutely. Same people.
You talk about entitlement. I want to try to tie this back in real quick.
Okay.
So I was just reading here what Mr. Warmbier was doing in North Korea. Are you aware of why he was there? Because I wasn't. That's what I want to rumor.
I've heard rumor that he was in China and then was offered the chance to visit North Korea and went along.
Right. So the reason I'm bringing this up is I look at this and I go, okay, we're talking about how entitled people are nowadays. And I wonder what went through this guy's head.
Right.
He's a college graduate. Everybody says he's a pretty smart guy. And his father describes him as adventurous, and that's why he wanted to go to North Korea. What other than entitlement would lead you to want to go to a place like that?
Right.
Because he had to have committed in his head and gone, you know what? It's just North Korea. I'll be fine. And under what sort of clear mental state do you think, yeah, I'm just going to pop into North Korea, just check it out, and then I'll just head back over to China?
Sort of.
Who vacations in North Korea? That's all I'm asking.
But I don't think it was a vacation, but I think the argument could be made, and I don't know this.
Now, I'm reading Wikipedia.
Oh, boy.
Take it as you will.
Right.
This is just where the rabbit trail led me. But he basically says he was vacationing. That's what he was doing there.
In China. And then diverted to North Korea.
And decided to take a little jaunt over to the old North Korea.
Well, heck, I mean... who
sounds like just a quick weekend holiday.
Who vacations in China, you know? All right, here's the point I'm going to make. I don't know that... Well, okay. It's not that
he was only supposed to be there for 5 days.
We don't know why he went to North Korea. Everything is speculation, right? So let's speculate that maybe he was there to see the suffering. Because sometimes when you know that people are suffering somewhere and you witness it, it can kind of create that fire in you to go and help them more than you already are. So the argument can be made that the kid's in China and they say, well, we're going to go take a look at North Korea. And he goes, man, the Chinese have it so awful. Look at the way these people are oppressed. North Korea must be that much more. People need to do something about it. And if I go and I see it and I can tell them what I've seen, people would be more inclined to help out. We don't know that that's not what he was doing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So if he gets caught up in stealing a banner, if that story is even true, which it doesn't have to be, because North Korea will just lock up American kids because...
They do have video of him actually stealing it.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Yeah, I saw the video.
So he steals the banner, and they lock him up for 15 years over it, and then they kill him. I think there's a lot more that needs to rain down on North Korea. And by the way, so LaShaw knows Barack Obama refused to help get this young man home. Okay.
Yeah, we got Dennis Rodman doing State Department work over there.
But was that racism at play? Did Obama only refuse? Like, Obama spoke up about Trayvon Martin, who we later learned looped back around and attacked George Zimmerman. Barack Obama spoke up for Michael Brown and his family, who we later learned tried to kill a police officer, whose family, by the way, encouraged people to burn Ferguson down, and then the people did it. So Barack Obama has taken the side of people who have actively promoted terrorism, and he's been kosher with that. But then he won't bring a white student home from North Korea. Is it only because Otto was white? Had Otto been black, would that have... It's the same as Oprah. Oprah is a big, huge racist, and she can't shake that because if you remember, she falsely accused that lady one time of not showing her a bag. Like, the lady didn't know she was Oprah. Do you remember that? And Oprah made a huge stink and then later had to apologize. Had to apologize later. And we know that Oprah never endorsed a presidential candidate in her entire career on television. Never, ever did it until a black man ran. And so, very racist mindset. She said, well, I'll endorse Barack Obama. So we have to ask ourselves, is this racism against white people? Now, of course, I don't believe it is. I don't believe it is. I just think Barack Obama was a jerk, and I don't think he cared to help. What he probably viewed Otto the same way this author did. He probably thought, well, there's some entitled, rich white kid. Let him rot. What do I care? And now the kid's dead because Barack Obama refused to do anything. Trump goes and helps the kid. Maybe Trump only helped him because he was white. The point is, not that any of that is true.
That's what it says on Wikipedia, too, by the way.
Right.
No, I'm kidding.
It's not that any of that is true. It's just how ridiculous that mindset is to get you there, right? Did Barack Obama not help him because the kid was white? No, Barack Obama didn't do anything for anybody unless it was politically advantageous.
When you click on Donald Trump in this article, too, it actually says he's in the KKK. So there you have it, Wikipedia.
See, fair enough. Fair enough. So... I don't know. But what I do know is if Huffington Post is going to allow articles to exist where they say white people murdered by communists get what they deserve for being in a communist country, then the article needs to exist that says Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin got what they deserved for committing crimes against people who were armed to defend themselves and, by the way, who did so legally. Quick side note, by the way, according to NPR, yesterday at noon, Michael Brown's family settled their lawsuit against Ferguson, Missouri. Here's the best part. The family's attorney says the details will remain secret because, quote, and remember what happened in Ferguson. Try to remember that. Quote, disclosure of the terms of the settlement agreement could jeopardize the safety of individuals involved in this matter.
God bless America.
Isn't it crazy? Anyway, the paper says a person familiar with the settlement said the agreement would be less than $3 million. $3 million because your son tried to kill a cop. Think about that, man. Think about that.
It's the world we live in, though.
All right. Oh, brother. All right. Heck of a lot more to get to. I want to double back on Seth Rich, by the way. Did you read the Profiling Project's report?
I did not read all of it.
All right.
I saw it. A friend posted it on Facebook. I took a quick glance, and I laughed a lot, and then I moved on with my life.
Did you? You laughed at what? What did you laugh at in the report?
What I read was, I'd have to go back and look, but this was, I guess, a report from some university. Mm-hmm. Who did it?
George Washington. Well, it's grad students at George Washington University. Yes.
And they came to the conclusion that a serial killer potentially killed him. That's what I read. Is this not the same thing?
It's the same thing, but that's not. It's inconclusive. Let's
okay, well, maybe I just didn't make it far enough then.
So, but for the record, this is a group of current grad students, former students, investigators, and professors, all working together at George Washington University. It's called the Profiling Project. Here's the takeaways. This is what should raise your eyebrows a little bit. After a 3-month review, an investigation into the death of Seth Rich. And by the way, I'll make this point at the top so you don't tune me out on this. If you think it's a conspiracy, and you think, well, what could these kids have found that the police couldn't find? Let the professionals do it. At the beginning of the report, they say, we came together to aid the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police utilizing forensic psychology skills and tools, listen, in hopes of providing at least one actionable item to the Metropolitan Police Department of D.C. And guess what? They did. They found a surveillance camera that had a clear view of the murder scene that the police had not yet found. And they went and reviewed tape and sent it to the police. So these, if you want to call them kids, but this group has done something that the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C. could not do. The police admit to that, and anybody of repute is admitting to that fact, that this group found evidence the police overlooked. So they've done good. Here's what they found. After a 3-month review and investigation into the death of Seth Rich, the Profiling Project notes the following. 1, Seth's death does not appear to be random. Seth's death, that's difficult, does not appear to be a robbery gone bad. And Seth's death was more likely committed by a hired killer or serial murderer.
There you go. Well, so that's what I was reading.
Yes. There may be additional video surveillance of the crime and crime scene. The resolution of prosecuting the individual responsible appears to be hindered both actively and passively, and Seth's killer most likely remains free within the community. So it's not, they didn't conclude that he was killed by a serial killer. To me,
with you now, yeah.
More importantly, they're saying someone could have been hired, or it might have been a random act by a serial killer. And that comes from the fact that, as we've mentioned before, 93% of people that are murdered by someone they know. And if you're not murdered by someone you know, you're probably being killed by a serial killer. And serial killers are exceptionally rare, which is why we focus on them so much. 7% of murders ever are committed by serial killers. So that's why they're fascinating. But more to the point, the resolution of prosecuting the individuals appears to be hindered. That's really intriguing to me. And you can read deep into the report. I maybe read the first 10 pages out of 48. And I really get the impression that the police department doesn't want a lot to do with these people. What I get even more tickled about, the
last point you made, No, I'm sorry, not the last point. But one of the points you made was that this investigation and the prosecution of whoever was involved seems to be actively and passively hindered.
Yeah.
That's why they don't want anything to do with it. That's why the police don't want anything to do with it.
With the profiling project?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the police won't be allowed to just forget about it and move on. I think there's a huge can of worms you're looking at opening. It's not like the Clintons haven't been tied to killing people before. This isn't anything new here.
Well, that was my reaction. So if we're talking about a serial killer, I mean, we're not real far off in thinking the Clintons had something to do with it, right?
I don't remember the guy's name that tried to shoot the Republicans last week, but maybe they'll pin it on him. Maybe, you got a political serial killer on our hands. It was that guy. He's dead now, so don't worry about it. Here's what's interesting. Brad Bauman is a spokesman for the Rich family. And he says the family was not provided a... Just listen how angry this sounds. This is what he tells ABC 7 TV. The Rich family was not provided a copy of the preliminary report, never saw the report, or was otherwise consulted in the preparation of the report. I received the report a half an hour before it was made public, thus depriving myself, the family, or the family's lawyers any reasonable time to review it. As noted by the report's methodology, the profiling project was given no special access to any materials, evidence, or persons, and due to case sensitivity, conducted only informal, limited interviews. Now, let me pause for a second and insert here. It's actually not true. If you read the profiling project's report, they say that what they don't want to do, what's the term they use? I can't remember. They don't want to cause any more grief for the victims. Okay. Sure. And they make that very clear in the beginning of their report. And so they purposefully didn't try and interview Seth Rich's family, because they don't want to cause more grief. So downplaying it and saying, well, they only conducted informal and limited interviews. Well, yeah, because they didn't want to cause your clients any more grief. So get over yourself. What
interviews I've seen with the family, it sort of seems like they don't really want to they don't want anything to do with any of it. They don't want to play ball with anybody.
Right.
Right. They're almost in an awkward state of denial in all the video that I've seen from his direct family members.
And wouldn't you want to know everything? Like if one of your siblings was killed tomorrow, wouldn't you find every crumb you could that might lead you to the person that did it? It's so weird.
They seem preoccupied or just genuinely disinterested in those details, which to me is the most bizarre behavior. It doesn't make any sense to me.
He concludes by saying, we further hope that this doesn't continue to impede the Metropolitan Police Department's ability to find the killers. Continue to impede, as if they've been in the way. They provided evidence to the police that the police overlooked. They're not impeding anything. They are helping.
Well, I think that's they're trying to extend a professional courtesy by not just being like, hey guys, come on.
But what is in your head? What is in your head when you're angry that a group of people are trying to help you solve the murder of your child? What is going on? This only adds fuel to the fire. Somebody is pressuring them. It seems to me, someone is pressuring them to let it go. Don't ask questions. You're next. Your other kid's next. We'll kill your entire family. Shut up about it.
The taped interviews that I've seen, that's the only takeaway I have, is that someone is pressuring them to just walk away.
It's so strange. It's not normal. There's nothing normal about it. You're killed at 4 o'clock in the morning outside your house. You're not robbed.
And again, what do we know?
Doesn't want to investigate anything?
What do we know that he did right before, leading up to this? It was obviously very recently discovered that he had distributed to WikiLeaks, right?
Yes.
44,000 emails, of which 17,000 some odd of those contained attachments. So he was sending all these files about the fact that there was a cover-up and collusion to keep Bernie from getting the nomination and put Clinton on the pedestal.
Yeah.
We know that for a fact. And we also know he was a staunch Bernie supporter. So obviously he felt burned by by what the DNC, his employer, was doing to his guy, the guy he wanted to see in the White House. Then all of a sudden he's mysteriously killed, and they're saying, well, obviously it wasn't a robbery.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's not what the DC Metro Police are saying. They were saying, oh yeah, it looked like a robbery gone bad. Yeah, but they took nothing and they shot him twice in the back.
Yeah,
what the hell kind of robbery is that? Yeah. I'm no detective. I'm just saying that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
It's a botched one.
Ha-ha.
So that's it in the
They should just
story.
put you on the case.
Yeah, let's wash our hands of this. I don't get it. A little ironic that a socialist would be upset over an unfair election process, but whatever. Sure. I mean, because,
only upset when it goes the other way.
Every other, it's not like can anyone name the socialist country that has free and fair elections? Can anybody? Venezuela? No, they're murdering people. Cuba? Oh, no, not Cuba. Well, we'll wait. You can email us, feltrecoilshow.com. Just find our email there. All right. Anyway, I guess just to wrap that up, Seth Rich Profiling Project. Read the report and visit us at facebook.com/feltrecoilshow. Or as always, link to our socials at feltrecoilshow.com. That's our website, feltrecoilshow.com. Okay, this is a good one. Out of the should have seen that coming file from Fox News. Seattle gun tax failure. Firearm sales plummet. Violence spikes after law passes. When the city of Seattle passed a tax on all sales of guns and ammunition, the measure was hailed as a way to defray the rising cost of gun violence. But since the tax took effect, those costs have only risen as gun violence in the city has surged, and the tax has apparently brought in much less than city leaders projected it would. Says Dave Workman. How much data do you need? He's the senior editor of thegunmag.com and a member of the Second Amendment Foundation. The data says the law has failed to prevent what they promised it would prevent. Seattle City Councilman Tim Burgess introduced the tax in 2015. It puts a $25 fee on every firearm sold in the city and up to 5 cents per round of ammunition. That's an extra $1 per box. Maybe $2.50 if you're buying practice ammo. The measure easily passed and took effect January the 1st of 2016. Comparing the first 5 months of 2017 with the same time period before the gun tax went into effect, reports of shots fired are up 13%. The number of people injured in shootings climbed 37%, and gun deaths have doubled. Councilman Burgess never returned calls and emails for comment. Dana Robinson Sloat, director of communication for Seattle City Council, said she was, quote, politely declining your invitation for an interview to Fox News. Get this. In selling his gun tax to the public, Burgess predicted it would generate between $300,000 and $500,000 annually. The money would be used to study the root causes of gun violence in hopes of reducing the costs to taxpayers. But Seattle officials refused to say how much the tax brought in the first year, only giving the number less than $200,000. Mike Coombs, owner of Outdoor Emporium, the last large gun dealer left in Seattle, said the actual tax revenue is almost certainly just over $100,000. Coombs said statewide sales are down 20%, while gun sales have plummeted 60%. He says, quote, I've had to lay off employees because of this. It's hurting us. It's hurting our employees. The money that has been raised by the gun tax is sitting in a holding account during the legal battle over it. But Seattle has dipped into its general fund to support the gun violence research study at Harborview Medical Center. Seattle, remember, they've brought in less than $200,000 from the tax. Seattle has paid a total of $550,000 for the study at the medical center, hoping to connect gunshot victims with local services in hopes of not seeing them in the emergency room again. Seattle is full of idiots.
It's a liberal paradise.
What's the thought process behind the idea that here's what we want? We want to tax this into oblivion, and sales will continue to either stay the same or they'll rise and we'll make a ton of money. Common sense tells you if I charge you more for this than the guy next door, you will purchase it from the guy next door. Okay? So this isn't a state of Washington issue. This is a Seattle city issue.
I don't think they know what capitalism is, sir.
Yeah, that's true. They definitely don't have a good grasp on it. So they're in the hole. It looks so if they've made less than 200 grand, but let's just be nice and say they've made 200. That means they're in the hole 150 grand, right? And it's almost like somebody should tell them that and explain to them, here's a good idea. Instead of taxing 100 guns that no one will buy, don't do a special tax on any of them, and more people will buy, and then that business will pay more taxes into your community. Kind of commonsensical.
Did you come up with that on your own?
No, Adam Smith did. He's kind of famous. All right, by the way, we tried to be real nice last week on the show and say don't blame the shooter's politics on, for the shooting of the congressional Republicans.
Officially?
Of the show? Of us?
Right.
I see what you're saying. Am I issuing a retraction? Yes, I am. I am. I was proven wrong, and
but tell me how you came to that conclusion. Who proved you wrong?
They did. The group Terminate the Republican Party on Facebook, according to the Daily Caller, began celebrating the shooting minutes after it happened. Marie Ellen Kane posting, and it's 1, 2, 3 shots, you're out at the old ball game. Daryl Riley replying, LOL, this was no surprise. We all knew this was going to happen. And Robert Blanche said, maybe a few real good ones, and they will start worrying about people and not their bodies or buddies. I don't know, man. Guys, listen, if you're going to advocate the overthrow of the government, could we at least use good grammar? Okay? Subversion is cool and all that. I mean, I'm down, but let's make it clear to read here. Anyway, the Daily Caller outlines a bunch of the shooters' really negative and really violent vitriol on this Terminate the Republican Party Facebook page. And it got me to thinking about how we kind of want to play nice and say, don't blame Bernie and don't blame his supporters. But then when you pause to think about it, you think, well, they kind of have been saying a lot of violent stuff for a while. And you have a media who is as rabidly opposed to Trump as I would have been against Obama, but they're getting to report it as if it's true. You look at Obama, and he was saying things like the bitter clingers, and we knew he had attended a church that hated America and did not like white people, that supported only buying from black businesses and things of that nature. These were his people. We knew that he was exploiting the black community to get elected. But we didn't really have a lot of media outlets outside of Fox News covering that kind of stuff. And if you believed it, you were painted as crazy. But now, if you believe everything the media is telling you about Trump, you're painted as normal. And yeah, that's the way it should be. Have you seen that picture going around Facebook of the CNN panel after Karen Handel won the 6th congressional district?
Devastated.
They just all look so dejected. And that is the media's tenor as a whole for Trump. That's
Breitbart has something on Facebook, and it just says today was a good day. And it's all these super left-wing celebrities like Sarah Silverman and all those whack jobs where they're just boo-hooing because they were actually out driving people to the polls and all this stuff. And they just cannot handle the fact that they actually got out mobilized and it wasn't fruitful.
Well, you're right. I don't disagree. I also take from it that these people are realizing not many people agree with them. So the left in Hollywood... Are they? I think so. And I think that...
Maybe now, you mean?
Yeah. So the left in Hollywood, they loved Obama. They loved him because Obama was so willing to be part of their crowd, to give them access they shouldn't have had. Jay-Z and Beyonce in the war room.
The guy wanted to be a celebrity.
Yeah,
he loved the limelight.
I agree.
Not that Donald Trump doesn't, but I mean it in a different way.
What I'm saying is you got a guy like Obama that embraces them and makes them feel important and makes them feel like the world agrees. Then they lose to Trump and they go, okay, that was a fluke. Nobody believes him. I'm still cool. I'm still part of the it crowd. Everybody's gonna, when I say jump, people are gonna say how high. And now, no.
But since Obama was elected the first time, I'm trying to remember exactly how many. It's 1,000+ seats in the Congress have turned over.
Yeah.
Okay. And now you have somewhere, I think, in the neighborhood of 5 states that have Republican governors as well as their Congress majority.
It's crazy.
Who would have guessed that? And these are in places that you wouldn't normally think that would happen.
Yeah.
So that's, to your point, if they're not waking up to it, maybe they should take a look at the map. Right? You know?
Yeah. And so, but they don't like that because that's the Electoral College. And these are people who really believe that the people of rural Montana should be governed by those inside of New York City. The people of New York City should be allowed to say what the law is for the people in rural Montana. And it's not the way a world should work. It's not the way the country should work. It's not the way it was designed. It's working the way it was designed. And most people don't understand that, and they don't stop to think about it. But now they're angry about it. And they've done, Kathy Griffin has now decapitated the president of the United States, posted it around, and everybody says, well, what happens, you know, there's a big outcry about her free speech, and well, does she have the right to do it? Sure, she has the right to do it. She can do whatever she wants. It's fine. You can mimic killing the president of the United States. You're probably going to get investigated.
She's not the only one doing it anyway.
You're going to get investigated
all over the place.
Right. But the point is, here's the point. This is where it bites them in the butt, and they get so mad about it. Now, capitalism kicks in, and we get to say, well, that violates my conscience, and I don't agree with that. So I won't do business with anybody that does business with you. So if you have an endorsement from a company and they're going to put your face on it, I'm not going to buy their product because I don't agree with what you're doing.
I was on the fence about the Squatty Potty, and then she went all nuts, and now I'm like, you know what? I guess I'm just not going to get a Squatty Potty.
Made your decision as easy as Squatty Potty makes a bowel movement. We'd like to thank our sponsors.
Trademark that.
Yeah, right? So it's just an interesting thing that now that they're all so angry, but it's because they don't feel like the cool kids anymore. And so what has that resulted in? That's resulted in them begging their people around them to do whatever it takes to get rid of Trump. And that has resulted in a guy shooting up a bunch of Republicans and trying to kill people because he doesn't feel accepted anymore. He doesn't feel like he's in control, because he never really understood how it worked in the first place. I mean, anybody willing to say the rich don't pay their fair share doesn't understand what's actually happening. Rich people in America pay far more in taxes than you and I do. Far more. They create jobs, and the people whose jobs they've created then pay taxes. Do you do that? Do I do that? No, not really. So slow down, stop, think about it, know what you're talking about. Anyway, the overall point here is, last week, I really wanted to say, hey, you know, we aren't sure, and we weren't, and you know, let's give it some time and let's see what happens. And then instead of people saying, I guess this is what kind of tipped me over the edge, instead of them saying, this isn't something we'd condone, you have hundreds of people excited about it. They're happy about it. So not everyone on the left, but to those people, I say, if that's what you want, come and get it.
Well, I think a difference between liberals and conservatives is you last week on the show were willing to give this guy the benefit of the doubt and say, okay,
I'm usually that way with mass killers.
Sure you are.
I like to give him the benefit of the doubt up front.
Kris, gonna need to talk to you about these Islamic terrorists, because I don't think that's really how it's been going.
That's different.
Oh, okay. But in reality, you were willing to give that guy not a pass, but some time. Let's let the facts come out. It was fresh.
Yeah.
But when it happens any other time, and the facts about someone being maybe a Bernie supporter aren't what comes out first.
Right.
You know, we joked about last week. We're going to blame the gun. Mm-hmm. We're going to try to put this guy in a box and put all these labels on him and say he's a this and he's a that and he's a conservative, blah, 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 blah. There's such a difference in the approach and the approach the media takes.
Yeah. Well, the media can't handle rational thought. But
as you've already stated, the media is what has created this.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. But I absolutely agree with that. I actually saw today, by the way, and I think this is important. Let me see. Our friend John Correa of Active Self-Protection, he had posted, let me see here. It's not in this one. By the way, he's worth thinking about right now because he has a 72-hour rule. He won't comment on things like the shooting last week until it's been 3 days and he can gather all of his information. Let's see.
The Felt Recoil podcast does not have that.
Yeah, no, we don't do that. This is actually from Yahoo News. Interesting. Through the AP.
In the past week since the shooting in Alexandria, Virginia, the FBI and our law enforcement partners have actively worked to gain greater understanding.
Yeah. We're not going to listen to him because he's going to take a while. All right. So Hodgkinson was shot and killed by police officers after he opened fire. But John Correa read the article, and I'm not going to take the time. But he posted and said, we're getting good info that looks like the guy bought the rifle he used in 2003 during the assault weapons ban and then modified it himself, probably to take AK mags. All of that illegal. All of it.
SKS is typically, well, in the original configuration, do not have a detachable magazine, right? They use clips. And there is a difference. And he apparently modified this so that he could have a detachable magazine.
Interesting.
And I don't know if that article you're reading goes into it, but one of the ones I read this morning said he bought that one back then. However, he had a handgun on him. I don't know that he used it during the attack, because he's too busy fumbling around with the rifle and not hitting a whole lot of stuff. But he bought a handgun November of last year. So apparently, shortly after the election, I think his intentions were in full swing.
Yeah, basically the article says that he acted alone, had no connections to terror groups, and really no motive outside of hating President Trump. He had a piece of paper on him with the names of 6 members of Congress, but it lacked any further context. He was unemployed home inspector from Illinois, Obama, who frequently railed against Republicans.
I don't think they were like buddies or anything.
Yeah, I bet they knew each other, though. We can draw that conclusion.
All right. I'll let you have it.
Yeah, everybody from Illinois all knows each other. It's just true. But yeah, I don't see anything else about it. All right. Anyway, that's about that. You can find links to the stories we talk about and much more at facebook.com/Felt Recoil Show. Make sure you hit our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Felt Recoil Show. You can see Patrick sitting down with Dean from Collis and talking about their optic lineup. You can also see our highlights of a day with Thomas the Tank Engine. That's pretty awesome. Had a little fun putting that video together. If you have kids, they're gonna like it. That's all I'm telling you. Plus, we're gonna try and have our first 1 million views on YouTube. And Thomas the Tank Engine, that's like gold. It's like finding YouTube gold when Thomas comes to your town.
Sorry, Sig X5.
Yeah, you're going to get outshined by a bright blue engine. Anyway, there's a whole lot more on there. And this weekend, we'll be heading down to the Clinton House to check out a 3-gun competition. So watch for our video recap of that very, very soon. Again, appreciate you hanging out. Appreciate you spreading the word. We'll see you next time for number 32 of the Felt Recoil Podcast.